As dusk approached, Jung-Chu chose to stay at a local house in the town. In fact, he had originally planned to check out a few more places to compare, but unexpectedly, the innkeeper woman standing at the door was overly enthusiastic. She practically dragged him into her home. "Handsome guy, don't go. In this whole town, only my place has such special rooms. I'll give you the best one. It's normally 500, but I'll give you a 50% discount. 100. Or I'll find somewhere else." Jung-Chu pulled out a 100,000 dong note, his tone indifferent. He clearly knew she saw him as an easy mark. The town was practically deserted. During off-season like this, lodging prices should be dirt cheap. But when he saw how quickly she snatched the cash, smiling ear to ear, Jung-Chu knew he still paid too much. With a guest finally arriving, the landlady was in a great mood. Jung-Chu wasn't in a hurry to go upstairs, so he sat downstairs with her, casually chatting while subtly fishing for information. She poured tea for them both and turned on a dusty old music player, saying, "Sai, this Fongmon town is truly a treasure. We've got mountains and rivers, everything you'd want. But I don't know why. It just never develops. The people in charge have been trying to attract investment for years. A few years back, they launched this big rural tourism resort thing. The town built a lot. It was all going well until the largest site suddenly caught fire one night, killing quite a few people. After that, provincial authorities launched a series of safety inspections. By the time they were done, city folks had lost interest and moved on to newer, trendier spots. That whole rural resort phase pretty much died out. Then some quick-witted folks tried secretly selling stone. We're near the mountains, see? Nothing else much around here, but lots of stone. Everyone did it quietly, so we thought it'd be fine. But somehow, misfortune struck again. One of the quarries collapsed. Huge rocks came crashing down, wrecking machines and trucks, and crushed people to death. Couldn't cover it up. Victims' families reported it to the provincial government. Not only was the whole thing shut down, many people got fined heavily. With the resort gone and the stone trade dead, the town tried again, this time hoping to build a factory. We've got lots of open land. After much effort, we finally attracted a big investor. Things looked promising. They'd agreed on labor, investment scale, everything. But guess what happened? On the way back from the town, the businessman's car went off a cliff. All 5 people inside, including the boss, died. The woman sighed deeply. They said the scene was horrible. The bodies were mangled together, and you couldn't even tell who was who by their clothes. With the boss dead, the factory project naturally fell apart too. As if enjoying the story, she blinked mischievously at Jung-Chu, lowering her voice with a mysterious tone. "Little brother, do you know where that boss had planned to build the factory?" Jung-Chu had a rough guess, but played along. "No idea. Oh dear. It was the abandoned flour mill ruins in the west part of town." She clutched her chest as if remembering something terrifying, then glanced cautiously toward the door. "There are some things outsiders like you can't understand, but I'm telling you, go wherever you like in town. Just don't go to that abandoned factory in the west. That place, it's cursed. Locals avoid it like the plague. Don't ask me why. It's already dark now, and just talking about that stuff gives me chills. If you're curious, you can look it up online. All I'll say is this. There aren't that many coincidences in the world. A lot of what people say online is real." Jung-Chu pretended to look frightened but curious. "So, all those incidents you mentioned, the resort, the quarry, the car accident," she nodded, clutching her coat tightly around herself, voice even lower now. "Some say it was all caused by that abandoned factory. The resentment there is too strong. It ruined the town's feng shui. They say several feng shui masters were invited over the years, but none could solve it. Eventually, they sealed up 2 wells inside the place and buried some talismans to suppress the energy." Recalling the well he had seen, its mouth sealed with a Buddha's head statue, Jung-Chu knew the woman wasn't lying. It was clear that even now, the landlady was afraid. She quickly ended the conversation and urged Jung-Chu to go upstairs and rest. She reminded him the shower upstairs was broken, so he wouldn't be able to bathe for now. She'd boil 2 pots of hot water and bring them up later. Mentioning the shower made her a bit embarrassed. After all, she hadn't told him that before dragging him in. But what puzzled her was that Jung-Chu seemed totally fine. In fact, he smiled and replied, "The shower's broken? No problem at all." He stepped onto the creaky wooden stairs and headed up. When he reached his room, he was slightly surprised. The guest room had an antique look. a fake old-style design, traditional double wooden doors, an old square wooden table, and 2 worn chairs beside it. Near the wall was a wooden bed. The blanket was the type seen in historical dramas, made of imitation brocade, embroidered with red and green mandarin ducks. He set down his backpack, sat on the edge of the bed, plugged in his phone to charge, and began reviewing the information he had gathered so far. The strange elements from that creepy script he had studied were starting to appear in real life. Fongmon Town, traditional opera, and that woman. No, he corrected himself. That female ghost. After all, this was Fongmon Ghost Play. There was no way he'd be able to sleep tonight. Not only because he feared that spectral woman might show up again, but because a new concern had emerged. The fake security guard. Who exactly was he? Not long ago, after realizing something was off about that man, a bold thought had entered Jung-Chu's mind. If he himself was a player in this ghost script, could that security guard also be one? Could he have also received the script? The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed. And if that premise held true, then besides the 2 of them, this horror game still had 5 other players. Who were they? Where were they now? Could all 7 be in this very town, and he simply hadn't run into the others yet? That uncertainty, of not knowing what lay ahead, was something Jung-Chu hated. Based on his understanding of these killing game scripts, players were rarely on the same side. In extreme cases, you even had to eliminate everyone from opposing factions to be considered the winner. He didn't know the other players yet, but the fake guard had clearly come prepared, either a seasoned veteran or someone with outside help. Either way, it meant trouble for Jung-Chu. With so few clues, this was all he could piece together for now. The deeper he thought, the more anxious he felt. During the day, he hadn't been careful in covering his tracks while investigating. That meant there was a high chance he had already been exposed and was now being watched. What would happen next? He had no idea. At this point, his only option was to take things one step at a time. Just then, Jung-Chu suddenly looked up. Knock, knock, knock. Someone was at the door. Knocking. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, measured, rhythmic. Around that time, it was probably the landlady. She had agreed to bring him some warm water. But now, Jung-Chu was extremely cautious. He didn't open the door right away, instead asked, "Who is it?" "It's me." A familiar voice from outside the door made Jung-Chu breathe a sigh of relief. He was about to reach out and open the door. But then, his eyes happened to sweep across the wooden floor, and he froze. That detail reminded him of something. This rental room was entirely designed in an old-fashioned style, with little attention paid to construction technique. Every step on the wooden floor would creak loudly. The hallway outside the door was also lined with wooden flooring. On such a quiet night, why hadn't he heard the sound of the landlady's footsteps as she approached? Bang! Bang bang! "It's me. Open the door." The voice outside rang out again, making Jung-Chu shiver involuntarily. Though it sounded familiar, it definitely wasn't the landlady. He quickly ran through everyone he knew in his mind. No one matched that voice. It was a voice that felt both familiar and completely foreign. Jung-Chu didn't dare respond again, but the knocking only grew louder and more intense. Bang! 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 The entire door shook violently. Strangely, the noise was so loud, yet the landlady hadn't shown up. Even though Jung-Chu was the only guest staying at the inn tonight, he slowly backed away, trying not to make a sound. Pressing his back against the wall, he turned off the lights in the room. As darkness fell, what he saw made his eyes widen. The wooden double doors inside the room had a classical design, with thick paper pasted in the middle. The room lights were off, but light from the hallway still shone through. The strange thing was, there was no shadow of anyone on the paper layer. Splat! Splat! The sound of knocking changed. It now sounded like someone was hitting the door with a soaking wet cloth. Jung-Chu immediately understood. The one outside the door was that soaking wet girl, the female ghost. "Why are you targeting me? Go haunt someone else." Jung-Chu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At the same moment, the hallway lights suddenly went out. Darkness engulfed everything. Trapped in the room, Jung-Chu didn't know what to do. Although there was a window that opened into a narrow alley behind the house, he didn't want to jump out unless it was absolutely necessary. That pitch-black, unfamiliar alley just screamed death. Worse yet, what if he opened the window and saw a rotting woman's head hanging upside down there? What now? What should I do? Even though he wasn't a firm believer in the supernatural, he still wondered, could a child's urine repel this ghost? Great, I don't have any child's urine. Despite his fear, Jung-Chu kept a level head and didn't do anything reckless. He leaned against the wall, his brain running at full speed, trying to think. About 5 minutes passed. Maybe even less. The knocking sounds gradually faded and eventually stopped. He swallowed hard and wiped the cold sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand. That really was terrifying. Though he was a writer specializing in supernatural horror and often boasted in group chats that, If I run out of ideas, I'll just go ask a ghost. Now that a ghost had really come, who could handle that? A long while passed, and Jung-Chu didn't dare move, afraid that someone might still be lurking outside. Only when everything fell completely silent again. Rustle, rustle. He slowly reached out to feel for the light switch on the wall, but when he pressed it, nothing happened. Click, click. He tried it twice more. Still nothing. Jung-Chu realized something was wrong. There's no way this was a coincidence. The surroundings grew even more unnerving, though thankfully, he still hadn't heard the door open. He couldn't just sit and wait to die. If the lights didn't work, he still had his phone. Relying on memory, he groped his way back toward the bed where he had left his phone charging. But the moment his toe bumped into something, he clearly remembered. There was nothing in this walkway, and the table was on the other side. He reached out his hand and felt something cold and slippery. His heart sank. He knew what it was. Someone was squatting on the floor. Cold. Freezing cold. And it sounded like he could hear muttering whispers, enough to drive someone insane. He had no idea how much time passed, but a light started to appear before Jung-Chu's eyes. He could feel someone shaking his arm. He tried to wake up, but something strange was holding him down. He couldn't open his eyes. His body was paralyzed. Completely beyond his control, it felt like sleep paralysis. Could that female ghost be trying to do something to him? Well, at this point, let her do what she wants. In that half-awake state, all kinds of strange thoughts popped into his head. Though he couldn't move, he could feel. Beneath him was something soft, probably a bed or a mattress. A little while later, his vision gradually cleared. The first thing he saw was a woman. Then he shot up and shouted, "Don't kill me!" Jung-Chu's sudden outburst startled several people nearby. Only then did he realize he was lying on a wooden bed. This was an old-fashioned room with several people either standing or sitting around, staring at him. His eyes quickly spotted one familiar face, the fake security guard he had encountered not long ago. "You're awake!" The young woman sitting at the edge of the bed let out a relieved sigh, then reached over to remove a wet cloth from his forehead, the source of that cold sensation earlier. Now fully alert, Jung-Chu counted 7 people in the room, 5 men and 2 women. Apart from the fake guard, he had never met the others. Moreover, this wasn't the same rental room from before. It was a completely unfamiliar place. Though also designed in an old style, this room was more meticulously arranged. Behind the door stood a washstand with a copper basin and a towel. "Where is this place?" After a brief silence, Jung-Chu cut straight to the point. As soon as he spoke, a young man sitting sideways on a long bench, wearing an earring, sneered with annoyance. "Damn, another rookie? I can't be bothered explaining the rules to a newbie. You guys do it." With that, he turned his head away, completely ignoring Jung-Chu. That voice sounded somewhat familiar, like he had heard it during that half-dream, half-awake state. Back then, they seemed to be arguing fiercely. Jung-Chu glanced at each person, then fell silent for a moment. "Looks like you're the other 6? That's right. All of us received the same script. We're teammates now. We have to help each other and try to survive this deadly scenario." The young woman sitting at the edge of the bed stood up. She looked to be just past her 20s, but her expression was cold and far too mature for her age. "Though this may sound a bit inappropriate, welcome aboard.